So at Akamai, we have created a global edge network that helps deliver content and media, helps protect websites, users, and consumers, ensuring engaging web experience for millions of people around the globe, and working with some of the biggest brands on the planet. But the pandemic has created a consumer adoption of digital channels like online shopping, home delivery, and telehealth, with 30% of consumers planning to shop more online in the future. As the world adjusts to a new normal, brands must create the high quality, scalable online experiences that consumers demand. But the thing is, we really enjoy physically going to our favorite shops because they treat us like this. This is what creates loyalty. This is what will encourage repeat purchases and get us to recommend them to our friends. This is what creates trust and gives us that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Online, however, many of our experiences are like this, constantly throwing hurdles in front of us to validate and verify who are you, what is your password, are you a robot, etc. What we need to do is make the online experience more like the physical experience. So let's dig into why that shop is important to you. Is it the price? Is it the value, the choice, the customer service, or just being there? A good sales assistant knows when you are browsing, when you need help, what additional things you may need. When you're a frequent customer, they're able to tailor that experience even more. But security is still important. The shop still needs to make sure that product doesn't walk out the front door tucked underneath someone's jacket or out the back door due to a disaffected employee. But the security is normally in the background. So why do websites have all these visible blockers and the shops don't? Well, obviously, crime is much easier on the internet. You don't have to get out of your pajamas. You can hit lots of places all over the world, all at the same time. And the payback can be much, much higher. But the criminals aren't always after the stock. Often the identity of your consumers is much more valuable. A username and password for a popular e-commerce site can go from between 10 and 20 euros. If you have 1,000 of those credentials, which are not that hard to come by if we think of the credential breaches and password reuse that we know is prevalent today, then you can see that this is easy money, especially when compared to the physical alternative. So this is why websites put up all these blockers to try and put off, deter, confuse, or delay the attackers. The end result is that you may have put off the attackers, but you have an unusable website. So we need to find a medium, a way to balance the necessary security against the customer experience. So how does this affect the CX? How does it affect the trust in our brand? When we try to do business with them, we are bombarded with riddles and click here to prove I'm not a robot. The point is, as a vendor, you should know who the customer is. The customer shouldn't have to prove that. And that's where we go back to trust. So I'm sure you've all seen this quote before, and it gets rolled out quite frequently. But I think it's very important, especially when you look at a recent survey by PCI PAL, where they found that a significant 74% of UK consumers surveyed said that if they were aware that an organization had been the subject of a data breach or hack in the last 12 months, they wouldn't shop with them this festive season. 74%, almost 3/4, were concerned about going with an organization because it had a breach this year. And that's a huge amount, and then can have a significant effect on somebody's brand. However, I prefer the Mark Carney quote of trust arrives on foot and leaves in a Ferrari. But if we treat our customers, so if we trust our customers, why do we still keep challenging them when they want to do business with us? Because there is a defined process by which ATO or account takeover happens. This isn't the only way. We can talk about phishing and social engineering as well, but that's for another talk. And we can analyze the 5 common steps of the fraud kill chain that leads to ATO or account takeover. So the first one is reconnaissance, and this is where we find a suitable website that people would like to buy stolen accounts for. We then purchase a large list of previously breached usernames and passwords that can build a suitable source repository. Ideally, they would be from a similar vertical as they have a high hit rate. Commonly, though, a rate of 1% is not too far off the mark. And so if you have 100,000 usernames and passwords, which is relatively easy to find, then you may expect 1,000 of them to be valid. And why does this work? Well, how many passwords do you have? And work it out from there. The next part is weaponization. The next stage, this sort of stage, is putting the tools together to try out all the usernames and passwords against our target site. We need to be stealthy and hide our tracks and not be too obvious. Fortunately, there are a plethora of tools that are either free or available for a small fee that can provide you with all the apps and proxies that you need to remain hidden. Delivery. This is what we call credential stuffing. Millions of usernames and passwords being pumped into your website looking for a valid username and password for an ATO. Once they have their confirmed list, they can either use them or sell them on the dark web. As we mentioned before, 10 to 20 euros is a good price for a valid credential. So if as we discussed, they get 1,000 creds, that's a tidy payout. Exploitation. This is when the validated usernames and passwords are used in anger. And then we have action. This is when the this is the cash out process, leveraging whatever is possible from the account. So what can we do to prevent this? What can we do? So there's fraud prevention, which is done by the vendor, but this is a bit reactionary, and as normally the fraud has already occurred at this point, and it requires the fraud department to go back to the customer, refund the money, and that's a lot of overhead and a lot of expenditure on the business. What we really need to do is shift left to move up the kill chain. And this is where we get to bot management, and this is where we commonly see captures that we saw in the previous slide. But this doesn't manage bots. It annoys customers and affects conversion. What we need is something that is transparent and frictionless. Something that can analyze a person coming into our shop without having to hassle them. This can be done with effective bot management using multiple points of telemetry combined with a huge traffic database and machine learning. We can block non-human requests in real time and prevent the stolen credentials from ever being validated in the first place. No validated usernames and passwords means less options for ATO, which means less fraud. Importantly, though, if done properly, transparent bot detections mean happy customers. Back in our actual shop, knowing who you are is important for the sales assistant. When they recognize you, they can interact with you, ask you relevant questions, or know that you don't want to be disturbed. But you never need to show your passport or driving license when you enter the shop. When I go to an online shop, I want the same experience. I don't want to be treated like a potential criminal. I don't want to have to respond to multiple questions about who I am and my ability to recognize road signs in North America. By employing an effective approach to customer identity, we can build this relationship and build trust. This means that identity, what that actually entails and how that is captured and used, is vitally important when we do business online. We want that same experience that we have in the shop when we go online. And we should be able to move seamlessly between the environments. Omnichannel is now more important than ever. Organizations will have seen many new customers visiting their virtual stores over the last few months. As we move forward and people go back to shops, hopefully, second lockdown permitting, they will want to visit the physical manifestation of this virtual shop that they have enjoyed. The last thing that a customer wants to feel is that they are unknown. A good customer online should be rewarded with a good customer experience when they visit your shop, and vice versa. Whether through an app that detects you when you have entered one of their stores and advises you of offers that are relevant to you, or alerts staff to make you feel welcome and offer assistance. However, security is still important. It just needs to be balanced against the optimal customer experience. When you enter a shop, there may often be a security guard present, maybe standing just out of sight at the side of the door. They have seen you, but your entrance into the shop was not impacted. You didn't feel scared. You weren't asked to prove who you were. The same should be online. Security should be there, knowing you are there without impacting what you want to do. And this holds true throughout the customer relationship journey with the retailer, and not only with security. This is where we get that warm, fuzzy feeling that we had talked about at the beginning, that feeling of trust. There are many elements that need to be touched to ensure that this trust is kept between the vendor and the consumer. For example, consumers expect a simple and frictionless registration experience. If they create an account with a brand, they expect to only create one account, not a different one for every single line of business or every single new campaign that's created. If they choose to bring their own identity, that should be a simple and easy process. Any information they disclose, they expect to be protected. If they trust you with the password, this can never be breached. Remember the credential stuffing? Do you want your breach to be the source of even more attacks? Awareness of privacy rights has also grown, and if a consumer makes a request for their details, that should be a pain-free experience, not requiring a painstaking search through a myriad of databases for the vendor. They are aware of their right to be forgotten. And more importantly, they want control and choice on how you use their data. Bundled consent might not be enough anymore. Realistically, it's more habitual consent. Do people really read the pop-ups? I mean, pretty much guaranteed never for cookies. And how many people read the pop-ups for opt-ins? And mainly due to a large and differing way of presenting these options, people are beginning to understand what they're for, but without simple, clear, concise, and consistent references to these options, they go unread. If this is presented in a better and more engaging way, people may feel more willing to opt in because they're going to trust you more. And if you batter them with legalese in the pop-up, they're going to feel pressured and confused. So while your digital landscape may not be the customer's concern, making a change to communication preferences should not take 7 days to update your systems. As a consumer, if I rectify my details with a customer service representative, I'd expect to see that in real time in my profile. If I say no to personalized ads, I don't expect an email or online ad the following day because systems weren't updated. And finally, consumers want this best-in-class assurance that any details they share are protected, and this is consistent across all their devices. This user awareness and feeling of trust that they need has been driven by privacy campaigners and compliance frameworks that have sprung up around the world. With recent fines from the ICO in the UK for data breaches again making the front page news, this understanding will only keep growing from now. So we need to look carefully at how we make our digital touchpoints effective with the current expectations of an increasingly security and identity-aware public. From a customer experience perspective, my identity platform should be able to allow SSO across all my devices, including web, mobile, and IoT, with a wide range of options as to how the actual registration happens. Does it use social login? What personalization options do I have? It also needs to be available at all times, and this is where cloud can really excel. When those requirements to suddenly service large amounts of users do occur, all the platforms can size accordingly and grow to accommodate the request. This is why identity is frequently outsourced. Your identity platform should be able to handle thousands of logins per second without impacting the user experience. Websites becoming unusable because they are popular really is not acceptable in 2020. In the same way that many e-commerce sites do not handle credit card data themselves, why should they handle personal data, especially with all the risk, regulations, and associated fines that can be applicable? Much easier to hand it off to a trusted third party. They handle size, complexity, regulations, and security and remove that burden for you, with them handing back a token describing the claims that can be then used throughout your web estate. We also need to build on customer trust and consent, allowing them to change or revoke their consent settings immediately, but also allowing progressive permissioning, allowing the consumer to share the minimum amount of data with us initially until they build up more trust and share a little bit more and then a little bit more. But with the ever-present four-letter acronyms that are shaping how we manage personal data, it is important that this data is collected, stored, and managed securely. We want to avoid data being stored in multiple locations and creating a toxic data sprawl. Equally important is what systems have access to that data. We now have a database that is rich with customer data and used properly can be a marketeer's dream. But we need to ensure that the appropriate tools only have the specific level of access that they need. An email campaign tool may need to know age and email address and first name, but it does not need to know the postal address. Keeping this principle of least privilege is a straightforward process when you're working with a single platform and not wrangling multiple databases. And this is a good example of why planning for scale is important and how it ensures that the user experience is seamless. This is some data from a large retailer and the identity traffic that they experienced on the site during Thanksgiving 2019 and the associated discount days on the Friday and Monday. So this retailer really doubles down on the hype around Thanksgiving and offers flash sales as well, trying to squeeze as much out of the peak selling time as possible. So this creates a fantastic demand and huge awareness for the site. And as you can see, it almost triples their daily peak of identity requests. In fact, they reach 7,000 logins per second at their busiest time. So the ability to scale is really, really important in these instances. And the actual traffic to the site was a much larger multiplier, but we were also able to help in that respect as well. So when looking at identity and access management for consumers, I wanted to show how Akamai is looking at this problem and how we can leverage our portfolio. As we have seen, there are a number of things that we need to consider. By using a cloud-based or reality edge-based CIAM platform, we're able to reduce friction for known good users and improve performance. Usernames and passwords are validated at scale and quickly, ensuring that content can be delivered quicker. Both of these help improve customer experience. As we discussed earlier, scale is important and auth should not be an impediment either to this or to reliability. Hence, deploying on the edge of the internet allows for 100% availability and the ability to service many thousands of requests per second. But we also need to be cognizant of security around that. By leveraging an edge platform, we can analyze the request and do policy enforcement, check the context and the transaction type, and if necessary, have service insertion so that we can add in bot management or WAF to protect against credential stuffing or application attacks. Customer experience, scale, and reliability. So these are really table stakes when you're designing a CIAM platform. So you need to guarantee that at the outset, else you'll struggle. But in addition, using a global edge also allows things like data residency to be easily achieved for all applicable regulations without having to hairpin traffic around the world to hit the relevant data silo. When we start looking at risk-based authentication, we are entering one of the key drivers towards a frictionless experience for the consumer. By taking telemetry from the inbound request, looking at the device, the geo, the time of day, and many other data points, we were able to establish whether it is low risk or high risk. And depending on that result, drive the level of authentication required, if any. In addition, at Akamai, we're able to draw upon vast arrays of intelligence that we gather daily from delivering, on a good day, about a third of global web traffic. And this gives us a very rich view into the level of risk. As we have seen, customer identity is key to balancing the customer experience, the required security. But importantly, that CIAM platform needs to be secure, reliable, scalable. But it also needs to serve a myriad of different applications that are constantly evolving and changing. So basic functions are key, like the easy self-service tools to get services up and running, having an API-first methodology that truly allows you to scale and fully support CI/CD models. Having automation tools to reduce time to market. API here is also key. Without this a major platform, you will have major problems with growth and expansion. Yes, it is a balancing act, but with a true edge-based CIAM platform, you can reach optimum customer experience with proper and effective security. And with that, thank you very much for your time today. Any questions?